It was probably by some way the best year I've had in the LOC. I dominated the regular season and the playoffs. It was led by strong draft picks throughout. I had a strong running back, or two strong running backs, a couple of strong receivers, and a really strong quarterback in Peyton Manning that year.
Burdettinators had the best season in team history in 2013, romping the league en route to an 11-3 record with the most points scored. This was on the back of outstanding players such as LaShawn McCoy and Reggie Wayne and Eddie Lacy late on in the draft, but the pillar that it all was supported by was Peyton Manning, a 5th-round pick that was heckled by Coach Merritt, who happened to face Burdettinators in Corona Bowl 5. Coach Burdett would defeat the Tuckfards in a record high amount of points scored in a Corona Bowl, which was also the first time the Burdettinators had ever beaten the Tuckfards. But the good times wouldn't stay for long.
No, I had a big drop off after the 2013 season. I think we had keepers in the first year, and I was very poor drafting into that. My draft strategy wasn't quite working for me. I was taking risks on new players in the league, people which, although there was a risk with them, there wasn't the massive reward behind them, so it was very much, I didn't have a lot to gain from them. I was hit by a few injuries, got some unlucky, but that was...
After the poor seasons that followed 2013, Burdettinators was ready to try a new, bolder draft strategy than he had done previously.
My draft strategy for 2018, it sort of rounded out my 2017 approach. My 2017 approach was I was going to go running back heavy early, which only a couple of teams did, and I had an unfortunate start to the year. I thought I'd do that this year, but fix that in with some big risk receivers as well, where I'm either going to trounce team and get 150 points, or I'm...
Burdettinators had a strong opening to the draft in Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, Stephon Diggs and Deshaun Watson. These 4 players would form the foundation of his 2018 roster, with Tariq Cohen and Geronimo Allison also providing valuable support from rounds 9 and 13.
That's the approach. I knew that's what I was going to go for, and that had been the same all off-season.
But prior to week 1, there was one more unlikely addition to Burdettinators' roster.
I feel my focus on running backs, it went well for the first few rounds and they sort of dropped off the board. James White was someone I wanted on draft day, but he went a few picks before I got to pick him. As soon as I saw him become available, I was like, well, brilliant, I'll take him. He'll sit into my flex spot quite nicely. He's sort of like all-round, do-it-all, pass-catching back, which fitted my mould. I had McCaffrey, Barkley and him. They're all going to get rushing yards, they're all going to get receiving yards. If they're not rushing it 1 week, they're receiving it. They
Despite the new approach, the results, at least for the first week, would be the same, as Burdettinators started the season with a loss against current champion Forge Flyers.
I don't think I had a bad week. I think it was one of those weeks where I wasn't boom, I was more bust. I still put up a respectable over 90 score. Chris had a very good week. His defense carried him through. His running backs did what I was planning on doing. They sort of carried the game through. I wasn't too beat up about it. I still had strong points, and I knew that my players were going to live up to the potential which I drafted them for.
What happened next would change the course of Burdettinators' 2018 season.
Anytime you look at week 1 and you see a running back who no one owns, who takes more than 50% of the snap count, you're stupid not to go for him. Some people, yeah, they had 3 running backs, fair enough. I didn't. I was sort of looking for that third all-round running back that I could rely on week in, week out, and I thought, you know what, 21 points, yeah, it's a fifth of my budget, but sometimes you've got to pay for what you're going to get. Like, I had to make sure I outbid everyone. Probably could have got him cheaper, but as it turned out, it was definitely worth that investment at the start of the year.
After the addition, Burdettinators won their first game of the season in week 2. However, they would alternate between winning and losing a few more, and would end up at 3-3 entering week 7.
What I didn't foresee was that, yeah, I'd have boom and bust weeks, but they're all coming at different times. At this point as well, Deshaun Watson wasn't firing. I benched him for a mixture of whichever Bucks quarterback was playing. I don't think I got over 10 on my quarterback score for about 3 of those 6 weeks. So I sort of thought, okay, what can I do to boost other areas of the team? I drafted Jags D early, they weren't playing so well, so I got rid of those, made sure my kicker was consistent throughout. But my running backs were doing fine, my receivers were just very hit and miss. I had a couple of injuries to them, and I realised that I needed to change something, and that's what leads on to the following week.
In week 7, Coach Burdett saw an opportunity to give his side a boost with the trade for Ixan wide receiver Alshon Jeffrey.
I was struggling with the weakest point on my team was I didn't have a second wide receiver. I had Stephon Diggs and whoever I could stream that week. I had about 5 running backs at least who I was happy playing. I had Barkley and McCaffrey who are automatic starters. Also I picked up Lindsay, which I touched on. I had James White and I had Tariq Cohen. I can't start 5 running backs, and I thought, right, let's look through the running back needy teams. And what do they have? Lots of receivers. Alshon Jeffrey was someone which he's a number 1 receiver in a good passing attack. He had a good year the previous year. He was coming back from injury, I believe, and a suspension. So it was, although his stats weren't great up to that point, you've got to bear in mind he missed a couple of weeks. Looking at his targets, he had about 10 targets each week, and I just wanted quantity. I wanted someone who's going to catch the ball, then catch it 10 times for 50 yards. They're at least getting the ball. So I shopped around. I think I offered most people Tariq Cohen. No one really bought on that. I had a few little offers back, but someone wanted, Ixan bit back with, how about James White? He was in need of a running back. I thought, okay, I'll ship him over and make sure I secure up my second receiver position.
Despite a 15-point week from Jeffrey in week 7, Burdettinators lost, falling to 3-4, and would find themselves at 4-6 entering week 11.
I wasn't too worried at this point. As much as I was saying I had some bad weeks, I didn't drop below 90 at any point in the season, which is quite a good benchmark. I had some okay weeks, and I thought, okay, my team's rallying together. I've got the players I want. I've got no injuries. Most of my bye weeks had gone at that point. My quarterback had started firing again. I had a good backup quarterback for when he had a bad matchup. My running backs were unplayable at that time. McCaffrey and Barkley had gone off for 20 points. Pretty much.
Entering week 11, Burdettinators had 4 games to go, but were 9th seed, 2 games behind in the division and wildcard race, and even were as low as 8th on the power rankings, seemingly eliminated by the media.
So I wasn't too worried. Obviously, I needed a lot of luck from other people's results. That was the biggest issue, I think. I thought all I can do is sit and play my game, make sure I put the strongest lineup I can, and make sure I'm alert to any waivers I need to pick up.
But what happened next would be a classic Hollywood tale, one the LOC is accustomed to. The cogs in the Burdettinator machine didn't change, but they started running.
I don't think anything which I did changed. I think my draft strategy showed through what I intended it to do. So I didn't just win the last 4 games, I outscored. I could have played anyone in those 4 weeks and I would have beaten everyone. I got the highest score each week, and that's what my team was designed to do. It was I'm going to have the okay weeks, which I'd had up to that point, and then after that it was saving all the best weeks to last. My running backs couldn't stop scoring touchdowns, my quarterbacks were in massive shootout games, my defence, I was switching it around a bit and I was getting the results I wanted, and ultimately it carried me through.
Burdettinators won 4 games in a row to finish the regular season, ending with an 8-6 record. The late season turn would be good enough for a wildcard spot and the 4th seed in the playoffs. In week 15, they would face the regular season winners, the Coach Nathwani-led Dream Team.
The regular season champs, they've been consistently getting a good score all year round. So I thought, you know what, if I'm going to beat them here, I've got to pull someone out the bag. As much as the trade for Alshon Jeffrey worked for the regular season, he wasn't going to cut it. He had a bad matchup. I was scrolling through the players and I saw Mike Williams as a potential pickup. Looking back at his schedule, he was playing Kansas this week. Kansas defense all year had been absolutely abysmal. Back whenever they played them at the start of the season, Mike Williams also got 2 touchdowns against Kansas, and I thought, you know what, they've been bigging him up a bit. He's not the number 1 receiver there, so he's not going to be shadowed. Let's put him in and find out. And I couldn't really expect what actually happened to actually happen. He got 3 touchdowns, about 100 yards, and it basically put me in a comfortable position.
The Dream Team have historically struggled come playoffs, having only won once in 6 playoff games, and despite a strong run at the end, they could not overcome Burdettinators. On the back of Mike Williams, Burdettinators cruised into Corona Bowl 10, where they would face 2 times champions, Tom's Tyrants.
At this point in time, he was the only 2-time winner of the LOC. He's been to the big game a few times. He knows how to get it done. He's always a good. If anyone gets to the playoffs, always got a good team. So facing someone with that experience as well isn't great. As it was built up, it was basically, was Tom going to build a 10-year legacy, and was he going to be the most dominant player, or was I going to stop him from doing that? So for me, I sort of felt I had the league on my back as well, making sure that not one player took that mantle home. and I took it upon myself to make sure that didn't happen.
Coach Burdett knew the stakes. Coach Barnes was the only coach in the LOC to have multiple Stubbs trophies on his mantelpiece, and with the third Corona Bowl in the first 10 years of the league, he would have stamped his legacy as the first dynasty in the LOC. A legacy-defining game, but nobody could have imagined the game exceeding the hype.
I knew that Tom, like myself, he had a 3-strong running back setup, but the form that my backs were in, I backed those to outscore his backs all day. I had to bring in, I was playing around with my defense, so I thought, you know what, I'm going to play the matchup this week, brought that in. I also had a bit of a predicament at quarterback. I brought in Nick Foles, which, as we know, as soon as it gets to late in the season, Nick Foles is phenomenal. Deshaun Watson wasn't playing so well, but I decided to stick with my guns. I drafted Deshaun Watson early. I've got to the final. I'm sticking with him. That's what I did, and he came up trumps. He had a ridiculous game week, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to stick to the core of my team. Most of the team which I played in that final I drafted or picked up early on, and it came down to the very last night. Tom made a very good... I was comfortably ahead on the Sunday night games. The very late Sunday game, Tom made a very good comeback through Damian Williams. I was kicking myself for not putting CJ Anderson in, which I'd been toying with all of Sunday, and that would have given me a comfortable win. So I stuck with Philip Lindsay. Stayed up to watch, I think it was Oakland v Denver. Oakland have one of the worst run defenses in the league at this point. I was like, I need 5.5 points, it's in the bag. And I watched it, and Denver could not get anything going on the ground. There was some questionable runs and catches where I wasn't sure if it was going to be a few adjustments, but it turned out on the very last play of Lindsay's year, before the play got injured on, he got a 6-yard run, which basically just crept me past Tom, and that's the story of it.
Burdettinators won the closest Corona Bowl in NOC history, with only 0.3 points separating the two teams. Winning 6 straight games to close out the season, Coach Burdett denied Coach Barnes' chance at immortality, and instead wrote another chapter for himself in the history books.
I think it means more than my first one. I think I had to work a lot harder for this. I had to make some tactical moves throughout the year, and I think it was well earned through the last half. I'm pleased to be now winning my second Corona Bowl. It sort of separates me from other people, and it sort of gives me that one leg up. I've still got to get past Tom, who's also tied on 2, but it's a good stepping stone and hopefully a step in the right direction for this draft strategy.